The last photo of the flying Wallendas was taken just 15 minutes before the tragedy. In 1900, 7 members of this German circus family posed on the rigging platform at Detroit's Wonderland Theater. Patriarch Wilhelm, his sons, and 16-year-old grandson Friedrich smile confidently, ready to attempt their signature human pyramid 40 feet above the crowd. But when historians examined this final photograph decades later, they discovered something chilling. One performer appears to be deliberately avoiding contact with crucial rigging ropes. His bandaged wrist is barely visible in the shadows. The pregnant woman's concealed condition, the suspicious distance between family members who should be interconnected for the pyramid to hold. Within minutes of this photo, Heinrich and Friedrich would fall to their deaths. Georg would be paralyzed for life. The official story blamed equipment failure and tragic miscalculation, but the evidence hidden in plain sight tells a far more disturbing truth about institutional greed, family desperation, and a sabotage plan that went catastrophically wrong. How many other families were forced to choose between safety and survival? And what really happened in those final 15 minutes before 7 people stepped into the air, knowing their pyramid was designed to fail? If this story has sparked your interest in the hidden truths of history, consider subscribing to our channel to help keep hidden histories alive, and comment your city and local time. At first glance, the sepia photograph from October 13, 1900, appears to show 7 confident circus performers posed on the rigging platform at Detroit's Wonderland Theater. The flying Wallendas stand in their performance positions, 3 generations of a German immigrant family ready to attempt their signature 7-person pyramid 40 feet above the crowd below. In 15 minutes, their human pyramid would collapse during the climactic moment, sending Heinrich and 16-year-old Friedrich plummeting to their deaths, while Georg would survive but remain paralyzed for life. The official cause was listed as equipment failure and tragic miscalculation, a sanitized explanation that would satisfy insurance companies and spare the theater's reputation for nearly 9 decades. Wilhelm Wallenda, the 52-year-old patriarch, stands at the center of the photograph with weathered hands gripping the rigging cables. His stern expression reflects 3 decades of flawless performances and the iron discipline that had built the family's reputation throughout the Midwest circus circuit. Beside him, his 28-year-old son, Heinrich, maintains the thoughtful demeanor that made him the family's unofficial chronicler, documenting every practice session and performance detail in journals that would later provide crucial evidence. 24-year-old Klaus appears confident, despite the bandaged left wrist barely visible in the photograph's shadows, an injury that theater management and even some family members remained unaware of. Margaret, Heinrich's 23-year-old wife, stands with the practiced grace that concealed her 4-month pregnancy beneath her performance costume, a secret that would have ended her circus career if discovered. The 16-year-old twins, Friedrich and Georg, occupy positions crucial to the pyramid's base structure. Friedrich, the more naturally gifted of the pair, had earned promotion to the upper levels through raw talent and fearless determination. Georg, more cautious and systematic in his approach, served as the family's emotional barometer, often sensing tensions that others missed while maintaining careful observations about performance conditions. 19-year-old Elsa Zimmermann, the newest addition to their troupe, stands positioned oddly distant from the others, despite being integral to the pyramid's structural integrity. She had joined the family just 3 months earlier in Buffalo, officially as Klaus's fiancée, and the 7th member needed for their most ambitious routine. The photograph captures what appears to be a moment of calm preparation, but careful examination reveals subtle signs of the mounting pressures that would soon destroy this family. Wilhelm's financial ledgers, discovered decades later, showed the Wallendas owed $847 to equipment suppliers, roughly $30,000 in modern currency. Competition from newer, flashier acts had reduced their bookings by 60% since 1898, and they faced eviction from their Detroit boarding house within days of this final performance. The Wonderland Theater contract represented their last chance to avoid complete financial ruin, making this pyramid attempt as much about survival as showmanship. Margaret's private letters to her sister in Milwaukee revealed the impossible position facing women circus performers of the era. Her pregnancy, carefully concealed through strategic costume adjustments and precise positioning, represented both hope for the family's future and immediate threat to their livelihood. Wilhelm maintained strict rules against pregnant women performing, believing their condition compromised the entire troupe's safety and concentration. Margaret's letter from October 10th confessed her desperation, writing that if Father Wilhelm discovered the baby, they would lose their last chance at financial salvation through the Wonderland contract. Heinrich's detailed performance journals documented growing concerns about family dynamics and safety conditions that management seemed determined to ignore. His entries from early October described Klaus suffering a severe wrist fracture during practice on October 8th, just 5 days before this final performance. Despite Dr. Muller's warnings about compromised grip strength, Klaus insisted on performing because the family could not afford to cancel their engagement. Heinrich's private writings also revealed his discovery of a secret relationship between his 16-year-old son, Friedrich, and Elsa Zimmermann, creating what he termed a triangle of tension that threatened their concentration during the most dangerous routine of their careers. Theater owner Cornelius Godfrey had invested heavily in renovating the Wonderland's rigging system, but maintenance logs discovered during 1989 renovations revealed that new steel cables had been installed incorrectly, reducing their weight capacity by nearly 40%. Theater engineer Thomas Hendricks had documented these concerns 3 weeks before the Wallenda performance, recommending that no acts exceed 5 persons maximum until proper repairs were completed. Godfrey received Hendricks' report, but chose not to inform the performers, fearing they would cancel their lucrative engagement. Instead, he quietly offered Wilhelm a substantial bonus to perform without complaint about equipment conditions, money that would clear the family's debts and secure their immediate future. This final photograph of the Flying Wallendas captures a family trapped between institutional indifference and personal desperation, where safety had become a luxury they could no longer afford, and secrets threatened to destroy them from within. In 1987, Margaret's great-granddaughter, Ruth Hoffman, was donating family papers to the Detroit Historical Society when curator Dr. James Morrison noticed something that would unravel nearly 9 decades of accepted history. Ruth, a trained librarian, had inherited boxes of documents she assumed contained routine circus memorabilia and family correspondence. But as Dr. Morrison examined the final photograph of the Flying Wallendas alongside Heinrich's performance journals, Margaret's private letters, and Wilhelm's meticulous financial ledgers, a pattern of concealed desperation began to emerge that transformed the official narrative of tragic accident into something far more complex and disturbing. Heinrich's journals, written in careful German script and spanning 1898 through 1900, revealed a family under mounting pressure that extended far beyond normal circus life challenges. His entries documented not just practice sessions and performance details, but increasingly frequent arguments between Wilhelm and his sons about the changing entertainment landscape. Traditional German circus methods were losing ground to newer acts featuring elaborate costumes, exotic animals, and death-defying stunts that made the Wallendas' precision-based routines seem outdated to American audiences. Heinrich wrote extensively about Wilhelm's stubborn refusal to modernize their act, clinging to techniques passed down from his own father in Bavaria, while their booking fees continued to decline. Wilhelm's financial ledgers painted an even grimmer picture of the family's deteriorating situation. Competition from Buffalo Bill's Wild West show and newer circus companies had reduced their performance income by more than half since 1898. They owed money not just to equipment suppliers, but to boarding house operators in 3 different cities, costume makers, and even the local doctor who had treated various performance injuries. The ledgers showed Wilhelm borrowing against future bookings, a practice that left them increasingly dependent on securing high-paying engagements regardless of safety conditions. By October 1900, their debt totaled over $1,000, a crushing amount for a working-class family that represented more than 2 years of typical earnings. Margaret's letters to her sister Anna in Milwaukee revealed layers of family tension that the men's official records never acknowledged. Writing in a mixture of English and German, Margaret described the impossible position of circus women who had to balance physical demands of performance with social expectations of feminine behavior. Her pregnancy, discovered in June 1900, created a crisis that went beyond Wilhelm's rules about pregnant performers. Margaret feared that revealing her condition would not only end her performing career but also reduce the family's earning potential at their most financially desperate moment. Her letters reveal careful calculations about costume adjustments, strategic positioning during photographs, and the constant anxiety of concealing physical changes that grew more obvious with each passing week. The correspondence also exposed Margaret's growing concerns about Klaus's behavior and physical condition. She wrote to Anna about Klaus suffering what she termed a serious fall during practice, describing how he attempted to hide his injured wrist from Wilhelm while continuing to insist he could perform the pyramid routine. Margaret's feminine intuition detected signs that the men missed or chose to ignore, noting Klaus's shortened practice sessions, his reluctance to demonstrate certain grips, and his increasingly irritable responses to questions about his readiness for the Wonderland engagement. Her letters suggest she suspected Klaus was more seriously injured than he admitted, but her position as daughter-in-law limited her ability to challenge his decisions directly. Most revealing were Margaret's observations about the emotional dynamics threatening the family's professional cohesion. Her letters described growing tension between Klaus and 16-year-old Friedrich that extended beyond normal uncle-nephew rivalry. Margaret noted Elsa Zimmermann's discomfort during family meals and practice sessions, writing that the young woman seemed caught between conflicting loyalties that affected her concentration during rehearsals. While Margaret never explicitly stated her suspicions about romantic complications, her careful descriptions of glances, conversations, and seating arrangements painted a picture of emotional entanglements that created dangerous distractions during their most technically demanding routine. Heinrich's final journal entries from October 1900 revealed his growing awareness that multiple family crises were converging at the worst possible moment. He documented Klaus's injury in clinical detail, describing compromised grip strength and visible pain that Klaus attempted to mask through shortened holds and modified positions. Heinrich also recorded his accidental discovery of Friedrich and Elsa's secret relationship, walking into a storage area where he found them in what he diplomatically termed an intimate conversation. His journal entry from October 11th expressed fears that Klaus's engagement to Elsa, combined with Friedrich's obvious infatuation, created an emotional triangle that threatened everyone's ability to maintain the absolute trust and coordination required for pyramid work 40 feet above ground. The family papers revealed that Wilhelm knew far more about these accumulating problems than his public statements ever acknowledged. But financial desperation had made him willing to gamble with safety in ways that contradicted 3 decades of careful risk management. In 1989, renovation of the old Wonderland Theater uncovered a maintenance logbook that had been sealed behind a false wall for nearly 9 decades, and its contents would shatter any remaining illusions about the Wallenda tragedy being a simple accident. Theater engineer Thomas Hendricks had documented every structural concern, equipment failure, and safety violation in meticulous detail, creating an archive of institutional negligence that theater owner Cornelius Godfrey had desperately tried to bury. The logbook revealed that 3 weeks before the Wallenda performance, Hendricks had submitted a formal report warning that the theater's newly installed steel rigging cables had been mounted incorrectly, reducing their weight capacity by nearly 40% and making any act exceeding 5 performers extremely dangerous. Hendricks's technical drawings and load calculations provided devastating evidence of Godfrey's willful endangerment of circus performers. The engineer had tested the rigging system multiple times, documenting how the improper installation created stress points that could catastrophically fail under the distributed weight of 7 adult performers executing complex aerial maneuvers. His report explicitly recommended suspending all large pyramid acts until proper reinforcement could be completed, estimating the repair cost at approximately $200. Godfrey received this report on September 22, 1900, giving him 3 weeks to either fix the dangerous conditions or inform the Wallendas about the risks they would be assuming. Instead of addressing the safety concerns, Godfrey chose to suppress Hendricks's findings while quietly negotiating with Wilhelm for what he termed a special engagement bonus. The theater owner's private correspondence, discovered in a storage room during the building's demolition, revealed his calculating approach to managing what he saw as an acceptable risk. Godfrey wrote to his business partner that the Wallenda booking represented their most profitable week of the autumn season, generating ticket revenue that exceeded the cost of rigging repairs by more than 300%. He reasoned that experienced circus performers routinely worked with substandard equipment and that their expertise would compensate for any structural deficiencies in the theater's rigging system. Wilhelm's response to Godfrey's offer exposed the impossible position facing circus families caught between financial survival and physical safety. Margaret's letters revealed that Wilhelm initially rejected the bonus arrangement, recognizing that Godfrey's unusual generosity suggested hidden problems with the performance conditions. But as eviction notices arrived and equipment suppliers threatened legal action, Wilhelm found himself reconsidering an offer that would clear their debts and secure the family's immediate future. Margaret wrote to her sister that Wilhelm spent entire nights pacing their boarding house room, weighing his 30 years of safety-first circus experience against the family's desperate need for financial salvation. The decision to accept Godfrey's terms represented a fundamental betrayal of Wilhelm's core principles about performer safety and family protection. Heinrich's journal entries from late September documented heated arguments between father and son about the wisdom of performing under questionable conditions. Wilhelm argued that their experience and skill would overcome any equipment limitations, while Heinrich expressed concerns that their current family tensions made them poorly equipped to compensate for institutional failures. The patriarch's choice to prioritize financial survival over safety considerations created a precedent that would influence Klaus's own disastrous decision-making process in the days leading up to the performance. Klaus's growing awareness of the rigging problems, combined with his concealed injury and emotional turmoil over the Friedrich Elsa situation, led him to develop what Heinrich's journal described as an increasingly reckless plan to expose Godfrey's negligence. Klaus believed that a controlled failure during the pyramid routine would publicly demonstrate the dangerous conditions while allowing him to avoid performing with his compromised wrist strength. His technical knowledge of rigging systems, gained through years of setup and maintenance work, convinced him that he could create a minor collapse that would embarrass Godfrey without causing serious injuries to his family members. Heinrich's final journal entry, written just hours before the fatal performance, revealed his growing alarm about Klaus's behavior and intentions. He described Klaus making cryptic comments about ending Godfrey's greed and Wilhelm's stubbornness, statements that Heinrich initially interpreted as emotional venting rather than descriptions of actual sabotage plans. The journal entry also documented Klaus's suspicious insistence on personally checking all rigging connections, a task normally shared among multiple family members. Heinrich noted that Klaus spent unusual amounts of time examining the specific cables that would bear his weight during the pyramid formation, making adjustments that he claimed were routine safety precautions. The convergence of institutional negligence, family desperation, and individual sabotage created conditions that transformed what should have been a manageable performance into an inevitable catastrophe. Godfrey's suppression of safety information, Wilhelm's acceptance of dangerous conditions, and Klaus's plan to expose the theater's negligence through controlled failure combined to produce the exact circumstances that would make their pyramid collapse both predictable and devastating. The maintenance logs revealed that multiple parties possessed crucial information about the impending disaster, but institutional greed, family loyalty, and personal pride prevented anyone from taking action that might have saved Heinrich and Friedrich's lives. Ruth Hoffman's investigation took a crucial turn when she discovered that Detroit Free Press reporter Samuel Hayes had conducted extensive interviews immediately after the tragedy, but his detailed findings were never published in the sanitized account that appeared in the newspaper the following day. Hayes's personal notes, found in the Detroit Free Press archives during a 1990 renovation, told a dramatically different story than the brief article about equipment failure and tragic accident that had satisfied public curiosity for nearly 9 decades. His unpublished interviews with theater patrons, medical personnel, and the surviving performers revealed a pattern of suspicious behavior and deliberate concealment that transformed the official narrative into an obvious cover-up designed to protect both institutional and family interests. Mrs. Dorothy Ashworth, a regular theater patron who held front-row seats for circus performances, provided Hayes with the most detailed eyewitness account of the moments immediately preceding the collapse. Her testimony, recorded in Hayes's careful shorthand just hours after the tragedy, described observing what she termed deliberate hesitation from one of the male performers during the pyramid's formation. Mrs. Ashworth noted that this performer, later identified as Klaus, seemed to release his grip purposefully rather than losing his hold due to equipment failure or physical exhaustion. Her account detailed how Klaus appeared to step away from his position in a controlled manner, as though executing a planned movement rather than experiencing an unexpected accident. Dr. William Foster, a practicing physician who attended the performance with his wife, corroborated Mrs. Ashworth's observations while adding crucial medical context about the family's apparent physical condition. Dr. Foster's interview revealed that he had noticed Klaus favoring his left side throughout the routine, exhibiting symptoms consistent with significant wrist or forearm injury that should have prevented him from attempting aerial work. The doctor also documented his observations about the pregnant woman's obvious discomfort during the performance preparation, noting that her condition appeared more advanced than would be safe for circus work. Dr. C. Foster's medical training allowed him to recognize physical signs that civilian witnesses might miss, lending professional credibility to testimony about the family's compromised readiness for such demanding performance. Most damning was Hayes's interview with survivor Elsa Zimmerman, conducted while she recovered from her own injuries in Detroit General Hospital. Despite her emotional trauma and physical pain, Elsa provided a clear account of Klaus's final conversation with her just minutes before the performance began. She revealed that Klaus had told her they would end Godfrey's greed and Wilhelm's stubbornness that very evening, words she initially interpreted as meaning the family would refuse to perform due to unsafe conditions. Only after witnessing the collapse did Elsa understand that Klaus intended to expose the dangerous rigging through deliberate sabotage rather than direct confrontation with theater management or family authority. Elsa's hospital interview also exposed the full extent of the emotional complications that had destabilized the family's professional relationships. She admitted to Hayes that her engagement to Klaus had become increasingly strained due to her growing attachment to 16-year-old Friedrich, creating what she described as an impossible situation that affected everyone's ability to maintain the trust essential for aerial work. Her testimony revealed that Klaus had discovered her relationship with Friedrich just 2 days before the performance, leading to confrontations that left both young men emotionally devastated and unable to focus properly on safety protocols during their final rehearsals. Margaret's tragic testimony, given from her own hospital bed while grieving the loss of her husband and suffering from complications related to her pregnancy, provided crucial insight into the family dynamics that had made disaster inevitable. She told Hayes that Heinrich had expressed serious concerns about Klaus's fitness to perform, both physically, due to his concealed injury, and emotionally due to his growing resentment toward Wilhelm's financial decisions. Margaret revealed that Heinrich had pleaded with Wilhelm to cancel the performance or at least modify the routine to reduce Klaus's role, but the patriarch's desperation for the bonus payment had made him unwilling to risk disappointing Godfrey with last-minute changes. The hospital interviews also documented the immediate aftermath of institutional damage control that began even before the injured performers received proper medical treatment. Margaret described how Godfrey appeared at the hospital within hours of the tragedy, offering immediate financial assistance for medical expenses while requesting that family members avoid discussing specific details about the collapse with reporters or investigators. Wilhelm, devastated by the loss of his son and grandson, but still responsible for supporting his surviving family members, accepted Godfrey's offer of $500 in exchange for signing a statement that attributed the tragedy to unforeseeable equipment failure beyond human control. Hayes' notes revealed that theater engineer Thomas Hendricks was quietly dismissed from his position and relocated to Chicago within days of the tragedy, eliminating the most credible witness to Godfrey's prior knowledge of the rigging system's dangerous condition. The reporter's attempts to interview Hendricks were blocked by Godfrey's legal representatives, who claimed that discussing technical details about the collapse might interfere with ongoing insurance investigations. This systematic suppression of expert testimony ensured that the true cause of the tragedy would remain buried beneath a narrative of tragic accident that served everyone's immediate interests while denying Heinrich and Friedrich the dignity of having their deaths understood in proper context. By 1990, Dr. Morrison and Ruth Hoffman had assembled irrefutable evidence that the Wallenda tragedy represented far more than a simple circus accident, revealing instead the convergence of institutional greed, family desperation, and a sabotage plan that had gone catastrophically wrong. Their investigation demonstrated that Klaus had deliberately weakened his rigging connection, intending to cause a minor failure that would expose Godfrey's unsafe theater conditions while excusing him from performing with his injured wrist. He never realized that his sabotage, combined with the already compromised rigging system and the family's multiple concealed physical problems, would create the perfect conditions for deadly collapse rather than the controlled demonstration of negligence he had envisioned. The complete truth revealed that within hours of the tragedy, 3 separate cover-ups had begun simultaneously, each serving different interests while ensuring that the full story would remain buried for nearly 9 decades. Godfrey avoided potentially ruinous lawsuits and maintained his theater's reputation by suppressing evidence of the rigging problems and bribing witnesses into silence. Wilhelm secured immediate financial assistance for his family's survival while avoiding the shame of admitting that desperation had led him to accept dangerous performance conditions. Klaus escaped prosecution for causing his brother's death by maintaining the fiction that equipment failure alone was responsible, though the guilt would haunt him for the remainder of his life. The official story of tragic equipment failure served everyone's immediate needs while completely denying Heinrich and Friedrich the dignity of having their deaths understood in proper context. Heinrich had died trying to protect his family from both external exploitation and internal dysfunction, while 16-year-old Friedrich had been sacrificed to adult failures of judgment and institutional indifference. The sanitized narrative that emerged from their tragedy obscured not only the specific circumstances of their deaths, but also the broader pattern of circus performer exploitation that made such disasters inevitable throughout the entertainment industry. Ruth's research led to a groundbreaking exhibition at the Detroit Historical Society in 1992, titled Hidden Truths, When Silence Serves No One, which displayed the original photograph alongside Heinrich's journal entries, Margaret's private correspondence, and theater engineer Hendrix's suppressed maintenance reports. The exhibition marked the first time that the complete evidence had been presented publicly, allowing visitors to understand how multiple layers of concealment had transformed a preventable workplace tragedy into decades of historical fiction. Museum attendance records showed that the exhibition drew circus performers from across the Midwest, many of whom shared similar stories about dangerous conditions and institutional pressure that had never been officially documented. The exhibition's impact extended far beyond historical education, inspiring Margaret's great-granddaughter to establish the Heinrich and Friedrich Wallenda Memorial Fund in 1993. This organization provided safety training and equipment assistance to circus performers while advocating for industry-wide reforms that would prevent future tragedies caused by institutional negligence and performer desperation. The fund's work revealed that the Wallenda case was far from unique, with dozens of similar incidents throughout circus history where financial pressure had led families to accept dangerous conditions that resulted in preventable deaths and injuries. Georg Wallendas' descendants, informed of the complete truth for the first time through Ruth's investigation, expressed profound relief at finally understanding the source of their grandfather's lifelong bitterness about family loyalty and circus life. Georg had spent 6 decades in a wheelchair, knowing that his paralysis resulted from more than simple accident, but lacking access to the evidence that would explain his family's destruction. His personal papers, donated to the research project in 1994, included decades of fragmentary memories and observations that confirmed the investigators' conclusions about Klaus's sabotage and the family's concealed problems. Klaus Wallenda's final years, revealed through research at the Circus World Museum, demonstrated how guilt and responsibility had shaped the remainder of his life after the tragedy. He had spent 5 decades quietly supporting families of circus performers killed in accidents, funding safety improvements at multiple circuses, and advocating for performer protection measures that he could never publicly connect to his own experience. His anonymous donation of personal papers to the museum in 1955 included a letter stating that no performance was worth a human life and no secret was worth a lifetime of guilt, words that served as his belated confession to the sabotage that had destroyed his family. Today, looking at that final photograph of the flying Wallendas, historians and visitors see not 7 confident performers preparing for triumph, but a family trapped by institutional indifference, financial desperation, and tragic miscommunication that made disaster inevitable. Wilhelm's weathered hands speak of a lifetime protecting his family that ended in impossible choices between safety and survival. Margaret's concealed pregnancy represents the crushing pressures facing women performers who had to choose between motherhood and economic security. Klaus's bandaged wrist and careful positioning reveal a young man's desperate attempt to expose injustice that instead created the very tragedy he had hoped to prevent. The photograph now serves as evidence of how institutional negligence, family secrets, and individual desperation combined to transform what should have been a manageable performance into an inevitable catastrophe that claimed 2 lives and destroyed a family's legacy.